Over the course of the Clone Wars, the Grand Army of the Republic faced more than its fair share of hostile environments, from the desert plains of Geonosis to the muddy wastelands of Jabin. But not even 3 years of grueling war could have prepared the Republic's clones for the hell that awaited them on Felucia. That vibrant jungle world was one of the Confederacy's greatest strongholds, and the Republic made several attempts at capturing it, which often ended poorly. Only at the end of the war did the Republic manage to make any real progress on Felucia, albeit at a high cost. In this video, we'll be discussing the full story of this bloody battle.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Felucia was located in the Outer Rim's Thenium sector, roughly halfway between the Polemian trade routes and the Radama Void. The entire planet was covered by shallow seas and dense jungles, which were dominated by species of massive fungi. Felucia harbored many strange and unusual species, from gargantuan fungi to strange, translucent animals like the Gelagrub. It was said that the whole planet was like a single organism, with every individual life form just a part of the greater whole. Considering how much Felucia was dominated by fungi, there may have been some truth to this. It was said that the whole planet was like a single organism, with every individual life form just a part of the greater whole. Considering how much Felucia was dominated by fungi, there may have been some truth to this. There were two sentient species indigenous to Felucia, a species of timid reptilians known simply as the Felucians, and the more reclusive amphibian species known as the jungle Felucians. The Felucians lived in small farming communities and occasionally interacted with the outside galaxy. The jungle Felucians, on the other hand, were deeply in tune with Felucia's life web due to innate force sensitivity, and they lived secret lives in the deepest parts of the jungles where outsiders rarely trespassed. In the pre-Republic era, the ancient Gossam Corviers set up their first colonies on Felucia, using primitive and unstable tumble drives to cross the vast distance between their homeworld of Castle and the distant jungle planet. The Gossam deemed Felucia unfit for large-scale colonization due to its dense jungles, but over the millennia, they still established a number of small communities and private estates for the elites of Gossam society. The Gossams subjugated the timid Felucians and claimed absolute rule of Felucia, and for most of galactic history, the planet was nominally under their control. In reality though, the Gossams only ever controlled the planet's larger settlements. Much of the jungle resisted exploration, and the jungle Felucians refused to answer to the outsiders. 700 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Commerce Guild took Felucia and made the planet its headquarters. However, like the original Gossam colonists, the guild never achieved total control over Felucia. The jungle Felucians continued to ignore the planet's self-declared rulers, and many villagers out in the Felucian wilderness rejected the authority of the guild. Among them, many indigenous Felucian townships and small settlements established by the guild's enemies. Nonetheless, all the major settlements on Felucia were under Commerce Guild control, and the jungle world became home to great strongholds guarded by the punitive security forces, the guild's private droid army. At the start of the Clone Wars, the Commerce Guild, under the direction of the Gossam Shumei, seceded from the Republic, taking Felucia with it. Felucia became one of many separatist strongholds in the so-called Foundry of the Confederacy, a broad swath of Outer Rim worlds that served as the heart of the CIS. Felucia lay close to the outskirts of separatist space, bordering the mostly uninhabited sectors around the Radama Void. Because of its importance to the Commerce Guild and how close it was to unclaimed space, the Republic repeatedly attacked Felucia over the course of the Clone Wars, hoping to use it as a beachhead for assaults deeper into the Foundry of the Confederacy. If the Republic thought Felucia would be an easy target, however, it was sorely disappointed. The first Battle of Felucia ended in a disastrous Republic defeat, and while the Republic made some headway in the subsequent Second Battle of Felucia, the planet's separatist defenders ultimately prevailed once more. During the Outer Rim sieges, Felucia again became a target, so much so that the entire Foundry of the Confederacy was deemed the Felucia Theater by loyalist strategists. The Grand Army of the Republic invaded Felucia yet again during the sieges, and this time it was determined to take the planet. Capturing Felucia was a tall order, however. The Commerce Guild had the planet heavily defended. After losing Castell and many of her coreward territories, Xu Mei had mustered a sizable army at her retreat on Felucia to defend the planet. A fleet of Munificent class star frigates and Providence class carriers/destroyers waited in orbit, backed by swarms of vulture droids, while on the surface, the guild had mustered hordes of battle droids, dwarf and homing spider droids, armored assault tanks, hellfire droids, corporate alliance tank droids, droidicas, and even a few squadrons of the infamous Gossam Commandos. Xu Mei had also prepared more exotic defenses for her prized stronghold. On her orders, dozens of vicious Acklay beasts were released into the jungles, trained to attack clones. The first Republic unit to make ground on Felucia, the 182nd Legion, found out the hard way that the Commerce Guild capital wasn't an easy mark. The Republic Navy managed to punch a hole in the Separatists' orbital defense fleet without much difficulty, but upon landing in the jungles, the clones found themselves in hell. The jungles inhibited their progress, leaving the 182nd vulnerable to attacks from droid units hidden in the foliage or marauding Acklays. Flesh-eating diseases tore through the ranks, and after only a few weeks on Felucia, nearly the entire Legion was lost. A detachment of the 501st Legion was ultimately sent to save the day, wiping out the Acklays and clearing a landing zone for Republic reinforcements. Once a beachhead had been established, the Republic dispatched a much larger force to take Felucia, spearheaded by Aayla Secura and the 327th Star Corps. Now, before we continue, we need to quickly discuss continuity. In the original story of the Battle of Felucia, Barriss Offee took part in the battle alongside Aayla Secura. Star Wars The Clone Wars threw in a wrench by making Barriss Offee fall to the dark side before the start of the Outer Rim sieges, effectively retconning her role in the Battle of Felucia. However, since no alternative version of the story of the battle was ever written, we're going to tell the original tale with Offee in her original place. Just keep in mind that, though the following story is mostly canon in the Legends continuity, Offee no longer has a role in it. In the final months of the Clone Wars, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine branded Felucia, along with Seleucamai and Megiddo, part of what he called the Triad of Evil. The capture of these three strongholds became the Republic military's first priority, and large waves of reinforcements were dispatched to all three worlds. Aayla Secura and Clone Commander Bly led the reinforcements bound for Felucia, which included a new fleet of warships led by the Republic Star Destroyer Intrepid and the entire 327th Star Corps. The clones of the 327th brought with them a diverse array of war machines, which included ISP and BARC speeders, as well as ATTE, ATOT, ATAP, and ATRT walkers. Thanks to the help of the 501st, they were able to land in Felucia's jungles and engage the planet's defenders. As the 327th began deploying in force, Secura, Bly, and the Jedi Padawan Ekria led a lightning strike on the Nigco detention facility, a remote separatist fortress where Barriss Offee and her Padawan Zonda were being held prisoner. Xu Mei's elite Gossam Commandos were guarding the facility, but Secura and her troops bested them and rescued the prisoners. The Jedi then returned to the main force, which had finished deploying. The 327th, true to their role as environmental specialists, proved quick to adapt to Felucia's unusual environment. The clones not only managed to quickly acclimate to the strange jungle, but they also tamed Felucia's native Gela grubs, which some clones chose to use as mounts or beasts of burden. They began to make serious headway against separatist forces. After rescuing Offee, Secura and the 327th advanced on Xu Mei's compound, located outside the city of Kuei Tiao. On Secura's orders, Republic forces attacked the fortress head-on, but this was merely a diversion. While the fortress's defenders were distracted, the Jedi infiltrated the compound from behind, hoping to capture Xu Mei before she could escape Felucia. They soon found that they were too late, however. Mei had fled the planet days before. While the Jedi were still inside, the compound's security failsafes were triggered, and they just barely managed to escape before a remote-activated time bomb destroyed the compound. As Republic forces regrouped, Commander Bly reported that the destruction of Xu Mei's compound was just the first stage of an elaborate self-destruct mechanism the Commerce Guild Presidente had set in motion. Bly's scouts had determined that separatist troops at 3 of Felucia's water treatment facilities had been ordered to release toxins into the planet's water supply if the main compound fell. Separatist forces had employed a similar tactic in the Battle of Atrakan, another Commerce Guild world much earlier in the war, rendering the entire planet devoid of life. Shumei's self-destruct order threatened to do the same to Felucia. Unwilling to let Felucia suffer the fate of Atrakan, Sakura chose to divide her forces and attack all 3 facilities at once. Barriss Offee was to lead a force to the plant at Hargao, while the Padawans attacked one at Geetsly. Sakura led an assault on the plant at Niango. The Padawans successfully captured the treatment plant at Geetsly, using diversionary tactics to get past the guards and deactivate the facility before the toxin could be released. Around this time, Offee and Sakura were well on their way to their own targets, routing droid forces as they went. However, their offensives were cut short. Before the Elder Jedi could make it to their objectives, the men of the 327th received Order 66. The Padawans at Geetsly escaped the carnage, but their masters weren't so lucky. Barriss Offee was shelled by one of her own ATTEs, while Commander Bly personally executed Ayla Sakura. Following this, Bly took command of the Felucia operation, leading the 327th on Niango and Hargao. The clones deactivated the treatment plants just before the droid army was remotely deactivated, bringing an end to the Clone Wars. The Republic, now the Galactic Empire, emerged victorious on Felucia, and Imperial propaganda blamed the plot to poison the planet on the Jedi. So that's the full story of the Battle of Felucia, but what do you think? Have you read Reversal of Fortune, the comic much of this story comes from? Let us know all that and more in the comment section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.